Allow me, if you will, to blow your mind. You're entering into the point of view of somebody in a tiny rural village in Surrey, heading north towards London. The question is, how will the dramatic change of scenery from countryside to metropolis unfold? Well, you'll find out as soon as we cross the border into the capital, which is about 10 seconds ago. Okay, so before we explore further into the point at which things begin to actually resemble London, we need to backtrack for the full context. With that, let me welcome you to Chaldon, a settlement whose recorded history goes back to the 7th century, when the land here was under the ownership of Chertsey Abbey. Today, it's home to a population of just under 2,000, lying immediately west of the town of Caterham, which is just as well for the residents, since the village centre consists of a village hall, a bus stop, and, well, that's about it. Save for one landmark, which will become of remarkable importance, as I'll soon explain. We take a right at the bus stop, and the northward path provides an opportunity for me to elaborate on the wider premise here. 2 years ago, almost to the day, I published a video titled London's Strange Easternmost Point, back when I was still in my getting used to the microphone phase. There's a link in the description if you're interested. It covered the anomaly of the hamlet-like settlement of North Ockendon, which lies outside of the M25 orbital motorway, which some mistake for the border of London, whereas the actual border, since April 1965, is what's referred to as the Metropolitan Greenbelt. Long story short, it's part of a post-war scheme to curtail further expansion of the capital by defining areas at the boundary of Greater London and the neighbouring counties, just like the one you're looking at, as essentially no man's land as far as new development goes. This has led to some bizarre anomalies as it pertains to the capital's border, like the one we're fast approaching. First things first though, we're heading, as the rustic wooden signpost helpfully guides us, to the church, and no ordinary one at that. The parish church of St Peter and St Paul predates the Domesday Survey of 1086, albeit with 12th and 13th century additions and an early Victorian tower, as well as providing an absolute picture, with or without a light sheet of settled snow. It also gives us a crucial waypoint, because a 2-minute walk is all that separates the church from the southernmost point of Greater London, according to Google Maps. Why the reliance on Google, you ask? Well, allow me to answer that one by displaying that 2-minute walk in a single sped-up take. What do you notice? Or rather, what don't you notice? That's right, any signage whatsoever. Which means it's up to me to tell you that we've entered the London borough of Croydon, a borough which evidently takes the mantra of less is more to its absolute limit as far as signs on the London-Surrey border go. You may still be processing the revelation that these peaceful country lanes belong to the same borough as Croydon High Street, but here we are, and so we remain for over half a mile before the first landmark of note emerges. And it's a doozy for the walking enthusiasts. Farthing Downs contains evidence of around 5,000 years of human activity, from Neolithic and Roman pottery to Anglo-Saxon burial mounds. In 1883 it was acquired by the City of London Corporation, and in 1948 it received scheduled monument status. Thus it remains open space to this day, a forerunner of sorts to the Metropolitan Greenbelt as a means of preventing London from ballooning any further into the shires geographically. What we have then is the perfect vantage point for which to see a good 20 miles or so into London, or in more historic terms befitting of its archaeology, the south region of the sub-kingdom of the Middle Saxons, hence Surrey and Middlesex, for any fellow etymology nerds. Along the way we pass a dog washing station, a gate that looks somewhat redundant, and a signpost that looks more like one you'd find in rural Norfolk than here in South London. But let's consider the ground we're on for a moment. This was still part of Surrey until just a few generations ago. Prior to the formation of Greater London in 1965, the most southerly borough of London was Wandsworth, and its southernmost point appears to have been on Streatham High Road, just north of Norbury Station, as far as old maps from the turn of the 20th century imply. For context, that's about 8 miles away from our current position. One of the towns that Surrey lost to London was Kingston upon Thames, which was Surrey's administrative centre at the time, and so it remained for a further 56 years before a town actually still in Surrey took over that role, namely Reigate. Finally though, our long-awaited glimpse of the London skyline emerges, with a little help from the zoom mechanism that is. All your favourite skyscrapers modelled on inanimate objects are here, albeit with the illusion of a different formation compared to the more common vantage points. Meanwhile, a turn to the left presents us with a panorama facing west, overlooking a cluster of Surrey villages such as Chipstead, Hooley and Netherton on the Hill. Whereas to the east we have semi-detached houses as far as the eye can see, by way of introduction to Coulsdon, a town formerly belonging to Surrey but now situated in the southernmost extreme of the capital, and our imminent destination as far as the built-up area goes. So, as we make our descent from Farthing Downs, we have a moment to ponder the quirks of the border of London at each of the 4 compass points. Its eastern extremity is North Ockenden, a teeny tiny village with a reasonably heavy thoroughfare on account of Lakeside Shopping Centre. To the north is Cruise Hill, essentially a glorified garden centre. To the west is a rather famous airport, and of course you've just seen its southernmost point. Do you know of any other quirks regarding the border? Let me know in the comments below. For now though, we get our first glimpse of London at street level in a literal sense. A railway viaduct, followed by a mundane roundabout, and finally Coulsdon South Station for information purposes, should you wish to experience this walk in person. So, what's the deeper meaning behind this video? Well, none really, it's just a bit of fun I had filming on a photogenic day of settled snow, but if anything, I believe it demonstrates the insane amount of visual diversity there is in the capital. So, love it or hate it, I'm sure we can agree that there's a curveball or two around every corner of every borough of old London town, which in Croydon's case just so happens to be an unmarked country lane. And I'm sure you'll need to lie down after this mind-blowing revelation. Thanks for watching and have a great day.